guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Whitney, and today I thought I would give you a few middle grade recommendations. So if you want to pick up a few during middle grade March, hopefully you can take these suggestions and try a few out. So let's get right into it. Okay, the first book I'm going to tell you about is Fish in a Tree. Fish in a Tree was a book that my daughter and I read for a book club for her and her friends, and we both really enjoyed it. It's about a girl named Allie, and Allie learns differently. She's not dumb, she just learns differently. But throughout her life, people have told her that she's dumb, and she switches schools, and her teacher realizes that she can't read. And so this book is about Allie finding her place in the world and realizing that her differences don't make her bad, they just make her different. So it's a good book to talk with your kids about learning differences, about being kind to other people, whether they look like you or not, whether they learn like you or not. And so this was a really great book that my daughter and I both really enjoyed. By the same author is the next book, Shouting at the Rain. We picked this up specifically because we liked Fish in a Tree so much. And so this book, it follows a girl named Delcy, and she lives in a little coastal town, and every summer she has her summer friends who visit, and they spend the summer on the coast. Well, this summer her summer friends visit, and she realizes that they're growing apart throughout the year, and she's really bummed about it. And what's more is this is a foster care story as well. Delcy's mom is not in the picture, and she's raised by her grandma, and so you see her grappling with feelings of abandonment and trying to figure out where she fits in and what family really looks like. And it was a really good book too. Savannah Grace and I both really enjoyed this one as well. The next book is Sweep, the story of a girl and her monster. And this book, my daughter hasn't read it yet. I keep telling her she needs to read it because this book, goodness, it made me cry. It follows a girl named Nan who is an orphan, and she has to figure out how to take care of herself. So she is employed by the worst chimney sweep in the area that they live in, and she has to go up into all of the worst chimneys and clean them out. And one day she finds herself stuck in a chimney, and there's an accident that happens, and she is certain that this is going to be the end of her. Well, something ends up saving her, and she doesn't know how or why she gets out of this chimney, but when she does, she's greeted by a little mysterious creature made of ash. And so this is the story of Nan and her ash golem, her soot golem, who together they become the best of friends, and they show each other what friendship is really about. The next book I'm recommending is The Vanderbeekers of 141st Street. This is the first book in a series, and one of my favorite things in books is a large, boisterous, really loud, really rambunctious family, and that's definitely the Vanderbeekers. There are a lot of kids stuffed in a tiny apartment, and it just kind of reminds me of my own family. I've got 4 kids. We live in a fairly small house, and it's pretty loud all of the time. I would not change it for the world. I love it. But I like seeing that represented in books as well. And this follows, the first book in the series follows the Vanderbeekers. It's almost Christmas, and they find out that their landlord is not going to renew their lease. And so they decide that they need to get to know their landlord, because if they get to know him, how could they not love them? And how could he not renew their lease? And so they need a Christmas miracle, and they decide to set out and make their grumpy old landlord fall in love with them. And it's just a funny, heartfelt book full of great family relationships, family dynamics, and I have read all of the books in the series. I love them all, but the first one holds a special place in my heart the most, for sure. The next book I'm going to talk about is By the Great Horn Spoon, and this is a book that we read together in school a few years back, my kids and I, and we all 3 really enjoyed it. It's just a funny story about the gold rush, and so this follows a young boy named Jack, and he decides that he's going to set out for California to strike it rich because his aunt and his sisters are depending on him to make some money so they don't have to sell their house. And so, of course, hilarity ensues. You meet a wonderful, colorful cast of characters, and you follow along with Jack as he goes on this epic adventure out west. The next book is Amari and the Night Brothers, and this follows a girl named Amari, and her brother Quentin has gone missing mysteriously, but she still believes that he's out there. And one day she comes home and she finds a briefcase in her closet, and it's an invitation to spend the summer at a summer camp. It's a supernatural school, and so she knows that this is how she's going to find her brother Quentin. So she spends the summer at this magical school, and she meets all sorts of different magical creatures and kids that also have supernatural abilities. I really like it because it's like it kind of takes the Hogwarts-esque material out of Harry Potter, and the school setting was just a really fun place to explore and get to know this world along with Amari. Along those same lines is the second book, Amari and the Great Game. And so she has determined that, I can't say too much about this, it is the second book in a series, but she's determined that this summer, it's the following summer, it's going to be the best summer, because last summer was full of drama, but this summer it's just going to be a breeze. It's going to be a fun summer with her friends. Well, obviously it's not quite the fun summer that she's imagining it to be, and the Great Game has begun, and so she has to once again be thrown into this world and try to save this magical world that she's just beginning to understand and feel a part of. And so this was also a great book. I feel like I may like the second book a little bit better than the first, but they're both wonderful. The next book is A Long Walk to Water, and this is a dual perspective book. It follows a young girl named Naya and a young boy named Salva, and they live in Sudan, and it's all about both of their journeys and their experiences living in a small village in Sudan, and what it takes to get water. And this was such a moving book. I really enjoyed reading it with my kids. It opened up their eyes to a lot of the problems that we don't have to face living in America. It was a good read. I recommend it for sure. Okay, and the last book I'm going to talk about is Keepers of the Lost Cities. This is my daughter's favorite book. She has read the whole series at least twice. There are 10 books currently in the series. Well, 9. There's an 8.5 little book in there, but she loves them. This follows a girl named Sophie Foster, and Sophie does not fit in the human world. She is a telepath, so she can read people's thoughts. And growing up in, a large city, that's difficult for her because everyone's thoughts are bombarding her. And one day on a field trip, she meets a boy who can also read minds, and so he shows her that there's a world where these gifts that they have are not extraordinary. They're actually quite ordinary. And so she goes with him, and she discovers who she is and where she's supposed to fit in. And I really enjoyed this series too. My daughter, the reason I read it is because I asked my daughter if I could pick a book for her to read, and she said, sure, can I pick a book for you to read? And so I said, okay. So I read all of these in the course of, 2 months probably. I flew through them. It was during the pandemic, and I was reading quite a bit, and I really enjoyed watching Sophie's growth from the first book to the last. It's full of adventure, but it's also not too scary for the younger crowd, but as the books progress, of course, Sophie grows along with her readers, and I really appreciate that about that. So there you have it. Those are the 9, I believe, books that I talked about that I recommend for middle grade March. If you pick any of these up, or if you've read some of these and they're your favorites, let me know in the comments.